tuned into the K-State Radio Network. Once again, thanks for joining us for Agriculture Today. There are so many themes associated with our dry weather in Kansas, as particularly the western part of the state, but other parts too are enduring dry conditions out there. One of the things that cattle producers, other livestock producers are considering now is the potential for their eligibility in a support program when forage is especially tight because of drought. The Livestock Forage Disaster Program, or LFP, managed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Our guest now tracks this program and how it applies to Kansas producers quite closely on a regular basis. He is Monte Vandeveer, Research and Extension Agricultural Economist for K-State, based in southwest Kansas. And you've some updated information that would be of value here, Monte. We'll get into that. But remind us of the nature, the orientation of the Livestock Forage Disaster Program. It came about a few years ago, did it not?
Well, I think there was a version of it in the 2008 Farm Bill, and then in the 2014 Farm Bill, it was made a permanent standing program. So it wasn't just approved on an emergency basis. If we're in a particular drought zone for a certain time, we know that those payments are coming from LFP.
And this is something that will help producers along in case forage supplies become ultra tight or just unavailable due to drought, right?
Right. I think most people probably remember this program from a couple years ago. LFP is the disaster assistance program that's based on the drought monitor. And I think most people remember the different drought zone classifications. You get all the way up to D4 for exceptional drought. Well, LFP payments are based on the intensity of the drought and the duration of the drought. So the deeper the drought, the longer the drought, the higher the payment that they qualify for.
And so you bring information on where we stand today in regard to that qualifier based on what we see in the drought monitor currently, right?
Yeah. If you're keeping an eye on the drought monitor, people will know there's a pretty good-sized red blotch in southwest Kansas that stretches down into Texas and through the states west of there. And we've actually been in that drought since probably last fall. So we've been in that drought for some time. Now, the clock starts ticking, so to speak, on our duration rule for LFP at the beginning of a grazing season. And in southern Kansas, that's actually in April, and other parts of the state, it starts May 1st. So our counties down in southwest Kansas, where it was already dry, the clock started ticking back in April, and we were in D4 at that time. So I think you've seen the map. There's a good chunk of southwest Kansas that's already qualified for the maximum 5 monthly payments.
As far as the stipulations read, if you're into a D4 category for a month's time, basically, 4 weeks consecutively, then you qualify for the program, right?
Well, you qualify for the maximum payment. That would get you 5 monthly payments. Now, if you're in D4 even 1 week at all, you qualify for 4 payments. And let's see, if you're in D3 anytime, any week at all, then that's 3 payments. If you're in D3 for 4 weeks, then that's 4 payments. The longer duration category is if you're in D2, you have to be in D2 8 consecutive weeks to qualify for that first monthly payment. Mm-hmm. And we've actually got a pretty good chunk of the state that's sitting in D2 right now.
In fact, all of southwest Kansas, large chunks of south central into east central Kansas would be in the D2 category, the minimum for payment qualification.
Right. I think we're got over half the state if you look at that D2 area or above. So those counties that are in D2 only don't qualify yet, but the clock's ticking, and so it may just be sometime next month that they could actually qualify if the drought doesn't expand and they move on to D3.
To point out, once again, the D2 category requires 8 consecutive weeks of drought to kick in. How the payments are determined then, Monte, and this is something that's tied to, what, the corn market, you say?
Well, the Farm Service Agency is the agency that handles LFP, and their payment is based on basically a replacement feed cost. And I think they use a corn price in some formula that they figure out how much it would take to feed an adult cow or sheep or goats or whatever your livestock is. They have a formula to calculate how much feed that would be, and I think that the rule is they pay you 60% of that for each monthly payment.
So if we look at the fact sheet from the USDA that lists all of those payments as of the previous years, that is, they have for beef, for dairy, for sheep, goats, equine, right down the list, we see that the payments have come down year by year. That has to do with the changes in the feed grain market?
Yes. So when the 2014 Farm Bill passed, we got these LFP payments retroactive all the way back to 2011. So some of those years, it was over $50 a head for an adult, say, a beef cow. But with the price of corn going down, our payment last year, for example, was only about $30 a head per month. So it's not going to be as big a payment as it was in earlier years, but I guess every bit helps.
We don't really know for sure what that number is here for 18 yet, but the odds are it'll be closer to what we saw last year.
That's probably a good working number to go with. So, as we mentioned, some of our southwest counties in Kansas are already qualified for 4 or 5 monthly payments, and I think they should probably be heading on into the FSA office and getting the paperwork started, see where they're at, and paperwork can sometimes be half the battle, but it's important to get that started.
Let's visit on that score then a bit about eligibility. There are some important rules that have to be followed here to qualify for such a payment, are there not?
Well, the main thing is, of course, you have to have owned your cattle before the drought started. And so the rule is you have to have owned them or at least contracted for them 60 days prior to the beginning date of the drought period. So it's not like you can go out and buy cattle and expect a payment. Now, if you had to sell cattle because you were short of feed, there is a qualification for that. So if you already had to cull some animals because you were short on feed, check with the FSA and see what they require there. Another rule is if you're going to send cattle to the feedlot anyway, those don't count, because that was going to be a routine business move anyway. So those particular animals will not qualify.
And, of course, if you have questions about that eligibility, your local FSA personnel, when you stop in and start cranking on that paperwork, can clarify all of that for you.
Right. Need to stop into your FSA office and see where we're at and maybe at least get the ball rolling.
There are fact sheets and such that one can take a look at, too, for further finer detail. But, Monte, you'd encourage producers in that large part of Kansas, say maybe the eastern edge of the state and northern reaches of Kansas, to explore the possibility of qualification here, for this program was designed for just such conditions that we're enduring here in the state.
Exactly. Now, you could do something, get in your browser and just Google USDA LFP, and it should take you right to the web page that you need. You can download I think it's a 4-page fact sheet, and also on that page there are links to the maps that show the county eligibility. So you can check that ahead of time and see where your county's at.
And because the eligibility is in a state of constant shifting because of the drought monitor changes week to week.
That's right.
Very good. Again, USDA's website can provide that information, the Farm Service Agency link to be specific there. That web address, once again, is www.fsa.usda.gov. The Livestock Forage Disaster Program now kicking into effect in parts of southwest Kansas, very much potentially so in other parts of the state. Monte, we appreciate the overview right here, and thanks for the heads up on this opportunity for producers who may have some forage issues and otherwise because of the drought implications.
Well, thank you, Eric.
He's Monte Vandeveer, an agricultural economist, K-State Research and Extension based in southwest Kansas. Of course, he'd avail himself to any questions you might have about this Livestock Forage Disaster Program and qualifying procedures for you producers to follow at the Southwest Research and Extension Center for K-State based in Garden City. Monte's been our guest on this part of agriculture today, and after this break, we'll hear more about the high-achieving team of students from K-State who put on a great showing at a major collegiate agriculture competition recently. That's next here on the K-State Radio Network.
Did you eat today? Thank a farmer. A way to get more involved in agriculture is through 4-H and FFA. Through 4-H and FFA, we have been given multiple opportunities to grow as leaders and learn more about agriculture.
You can learn skills related to jobs, public speaking skills, and you get the opportunity to travel around the country and meet new people.
If you want more information about getting more involved in 4-H and FFA, visit them on their websites at kansasffa.org and kansas4h.org.
Agriculture Today is back now. Recently, a team of students from the College of Agriculture at K-State took part in what is called by the acronym NACTA, representing the North American Colleges and Teachers of Agriculture, and a competition in various disciplines that are taught in the College of Agriculture, and other schools, of course, involved in this. Organizing this, Kevin Donnelly, he's a K-State agronomist, and we'll talk with two of the student participants in this NACTA event in just a second. Kevin, explain more in detail what NACTA is all about and what this competition is.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric. Yeah, NACTA, our parent organization actually is a group of faculty members from all disciplines across the agricultural professions, and the NACTA Judging Conference is a component of that, and so it consists of this competition, which is a little different than most other judging competitions in that there were 13 different contests all going on at the same time over a 3-day period. We actually hosted this last year here at K-State. There were 13 different contests, and then we were able to put together 9 teams to compete in 9 of the events, and it was held at Northeast Community College in Norfolk, Nebraska this year.
K-State has had some experience in this judging contest in the past.
Yes, we've always competed in crops every year. Our soils team has competed off and on, kind of depending on whether it conflicts with their national contest. And our equine team has competed a time or two. But in general, we have not been competing in a lot of contests, and if you compete in over half, you qualify for what's called the sweepstakes award. So this was our first attempt to have enough teams to qualify for that sweepstakes award.
And we'll list the disciplines that are covered here in just a moment and how K-State was represented there. But the general essence of this is to allow young people to further develop their skills and their knowledge in a given area, right?
Exactly. And so it can be across disciplines, and it's a lot of hands-on kind of things, as traditional livestock judging would be, to the more academic components. We even had a team on computers.
And this year, how many of those disciplines? You say 9?
There were 13 contests, and K-State had 9 of those areas represented.
And they were? So
we had our crops and soils team and a precision ag team. We had a knowledge bowl or quiz bowl, and then also the ag computers that I mentioned. Livestock management, dairy judging, and equine judging, and then a ag communications, ag sales group.
That's quite diversified into itself. So
correct.
We have 2 of the young people who took part on the K-State team with us here. Karen Duerksen is a native of the Newton area, and she is a K-State student here, as is Sarah Zerger. She's from Cheney, Kansas. They're both agronomy majors at K-State, and they've been involved in the crops judging team in times past. Karen, actually, you and Sarah were both involved in the crops and the soils, right?
Yes. The crops contest is 4 components. There's a math test, a general knowledge test, and a lab practical, and an identification of crops and plants and seeds. And so all those 4 components come together to form the crops contest.
And Sarah, the soils contest is?
Yeah, so the soils contest is we judge 4 individual pits, and we have to look at color, texture, structure of the soil, pick out horizons, and then do some classifying for use for later on.
Both of you had some experience on the crops side, so maybe that was familiar to you. Was the soils side equally comfortable?
I've competed in soils since my freshman year, so for 3 years. But Sarah?
Yeah, so I competed. This is my first year doing the soils team, and I competed with the soils team on the collegiate level for the regional and national. So this is the 3rd time I've done soils.
For the record, Sarah, you finished 3rd in the crops, at least one phase of it, the lab practical. What is that, by the way?
So the lab practical is more of a hands-on knowledge test. So there's various components for PPE, for chemical handling, different types of fertilizer, reading labels, looking at seeding rates and things like that. So it's more of a hands-on agronomic exam rather than answering questions like a written exam.
And Karen, you, for your part, finished 7th in the soils. Once again, you've had experience in that area, as you said. So talk about that achievement.
Yeah, so soils is kind of a tricky one to place in. It kind of depends on the NRCS people that put the contest together, what they see in the soil, and so your goal is kind of to match what they see. And there's so many different components in soils, so trying to get everything right and trying to see exactly what they have put down is kind of tricky. And in soils, you can look at one different color, and then that'll change your whole scorecard. And so it's kind of a fun puzzle to figure out, and so each pit is new, too, so you get to figure out one puzzle, and then you're done, and go on to the next one, and you have a clean slate.
And the teams for K-State, of which you were participating, crops and soils, both finished 2nd amongst all the universities. So that was a proud achievement. It had to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really exciting. I mean, we would have liked to have gotten 1st, but 2nd is always really nice to have, and it shows that we put a lot of hard work and effort into this contest.
Now, Dr. Donnelly pointed out that you have opportunities as participants not only to participate in 1 or 2 competitions, but several. And, well, Karen, you were on the Precision Ag team. What did that entail?
So the Precision Ag contest had a math section as well, developing different prescriptions for a specific field that had different rates of fertilizer, and then an ID section identifying different pieces of equipment or parts on the equipment, and then a general knowledge about precision ag software and different things like that.
So challenging.
Yes, very challenging.
But you were up to the challenge, you and your teammates, for you finished 1st team.
Yes, right? Yes. I would say that's more to my teammates, but it was a fun contest to participate in and get my feet wet, I guess you could say.
And Sarah, you took part in the Quiz Bowl, and there are variations of that around and about in agricultural circles. What happens with that?
So the Quiz Bowl that we competed in is varied across multiple ag concepts, so anything from ag mechanics to agronomy to livestock to ag business, and so it was very interesting to learn more about not just Nebraska agriculture but different agricultural concepts, and then test our knowledge on that and see who knows the most, which team knows the most.
And that team, the Quiz Bowl team, finished 2nd overall, correct? Yeah,
so that was the first time in a long time that we've placed that high for the K-State team. So it was pretty exciting that we got to keep going in the competition and show how much we knew about various topics.
But again, as both of you talk, it's very evident that this is a learning opportunity and that you got a great deal out of this judging contest along that line.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good learning opportunity to just learn about various topics and to meet other people as well and just kind of see what you know and how well you know it.
Well, Dr. Donnelly, the young people did quite well, it sounds. Not only these two, but a number of the others on the teams.
Right. Well, we, like I said, we did have an opportunity to compete in the sweepstakes, and actually that was probably our closest to that it's been in a long time. In that competition, you get to count your top 7 scores. So we had 2 firsts and 5 seconds. Iowa State had 5 firsts and 3 thirds. So as it all balanced out, it was only 20 points difference after it was all said and done. So we gave them a good run. They have won it for the last 3 years, so we pushed them as hard as they've been pushed, I think, for a while. But also, like I said, we appreciate the support of some of the other disciplines. Our ag communications team was a team of 4 ag communications, ag journalism students that went on their own, basically, and then also our dairy and equine judging teams both went up. And then our livestock management team was 4 animal science students. We had actually an ATM student and an animal science student on the Quiz Bowl team, too, to kind of balance that out. So this is kind of the first year we really went to compete across the board, and so I was very pleased with the outcome. One of the more long-term traditional schools in Minnesota, Crookston, who always expects to compete in the sweepstakes, kind of got pushed aside because we showed up. So we're still talking.
Very good. And just for the record, the teams in precision agriculture as well as equine judging finished first. Second place, again, crops, soils, the Quiz Bowl, computers, ag communications, and dairy. And then the livestock management team was in third. So that all built up to the sweepstakes showing that K-State put on, which was outstanding. And likely K-State will be a presence in the NACTA judging competition next year.
Well, we hope so. And I guess it's a pretty large group. There were about 50 different schools represented and over 750 actual contestants entered in the various contests. There also, I should have mentioned earlier, there's a 2-year and a 4-year division, so we were competing against the other 4-year schools. And so next year it'll be at Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky, so a little bigger trip for us. So hopefully we'll be able to take a similar-sized group there next year.
Well, Karen, Sarah, congratulations for your respective showings and on what you gleaned from this experience. And we appreciate you coming over and telling us about that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And Kevin, thank you as well for letting us know about this competition and its importance in developing agricultural students. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Eric.
Along with Kevin Donnelly, who's a K-State agronomist and the organizer of this event, 2 of the students who participated in the North American Colleges and Teachers of Agriculture Judging Contests 2018, Karen Duerksen and Sarah Zerger, Karen from Newton and Sarah from Cheney. And you're listening to Agriculture Today. More coming your way shortly on the K-State Radio Network. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. Agriculture Today is back now on the K-State Radio Network for this week's horticultural segment. As promised, we brought back by horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd of K-State Research and Extension for, once again, so many insects are welling up in lawn and garden now that it'll become increasingly more difficult to keep tabs on all of these, but we have several more we want to bring to the attention of homeowners and gardeners, Raymond. And we assured folks that we would talk in more depth about bagworm control, for we're very near the point of pulling the trigger on that control program, right?
Absolutely, Eric. It is getting close. The questions we're getting, are there any preventatives I can apply? And the answer is no. The bagworms have to be present, but when you see them and they're small, we recommend the use of like dipel. It's a stomach poison. They have to eat it, but it's very safe around dogs and cats and children and other vertebrates. It only kills caterpillars. Then the other one has the active spinosad. It's also a good material for bagworms. And then there's a whole assortment of pyrethroid-based insecticides and others. But it's really critical to get them when they're young and not later on when they're about an inch long. And, of course, we recommend once you see them, spray once a week for about 3 to 4 weeks because they will balloon in on other areas. They go to the top of a tree, they create a silken strand, and they just get caught in wind, and that's why some people complain they have these windbreaks, they don't see them for years, and all of a sudden they get bagworms because they balloon in for several miles. So just be on top of it, and that should alleviate, not eliminate, problems with bagworms this season.
And just about any of those compounds that you mentioned will be effective if treated in a timely manner on bagworms, right?
Absolutely. Again, the dye pill is a stomach poison. They have to eat it, so it's better to apply it when they're young. Spinosad will work a little later, but when they are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, then you're going to have to use some heavy guns to really knock them back.
Be at the ready with your appropriate chemical of choice against bagworms very, very soon now. Let's go to the vegetable garden, if we might, Raymond, and cover a few pests that are now showing up on our vegetable production out there. The bean leaf beetle, for starters. What's happening with it?
Bean leaf beetle is right now feeding on green beans, I've heard, and other vegetable crops. It creates these holes in the leaves. The insects look like a ladybird beetle adult. However, they're more yellowish and with black dots and a line down the back, but they feed on plants, whereas ladybird beetles feed on aphids and other harmful insects. So just be aware of this bean leaf beetle, and if treatment is required, you can use some of the common insecticides for killing the adults.
But it's defoliating bean crops. That's basically its damage, right?
We have heard mostly feeding on beans that have come up in vegetable crops, community garden vegetables at this point, yeah.
All right. And squash bugs, well, we talk about these each and every year. They're commonplace on a number of garden vegetables, right?
Yeah, the squash bug adult overwinters, and so they're coming out, and then the females will lay eggs after mating. And, of course, if you know the squash bugs, the eggs are on the underside of the leaves. They're kind of red, golden, then turn dark red, and then they'll hatch into nymphs. And the entire life stage is under the leaves, and so people have to get under the leaf surface with some type of a soap or oil, spray it and kill the eggs or kill the young nymphs. It's really too early. When the adults show up, they're hard to kill because they have this waxy cuticle that impedes the insecticide from staying on their body. So, again, the weak link is those eggs and the nymphs. They're much more susceptible to soaps and oils and then standard insecticides than the adults are.
And squash bugs will go after an assortment of vegetables, won't they? They
primarily feed on the cucurbits, squash, melons, pumpkins, things like that, zucchini, anything in the cucurbitaceae family primarily. And they are a vector of diseases. People don't understand that. And we do have an extension fact sheet. We updated, Dr. Jim Nichols and myself, several years ago with good images, more current information.
Now, spider mites, the recent hot weather is just the ticket for these to develop on tomatoes and other crops, right?
Absolutely, Eric. When the temperatures get above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the life cycle takes 7 days, egg to adult. And again, they're on the underside of the leaves because they don't like sunlight because of the size. They're so small they get burned up. But they attack tomatoes, a wide diversity of both vegetables and ornamental plants, Eric, and even bedding plants too. And once the population get established, it's really hard to deal with them. So if you're going to spray with like a soap or oil, or even we first recommend a force of water spray, blast them off, that dislodges them. But you got to get on it, and it has to be done on a routine basis.
And a typical miticide will take care of it, or general insecticide, what?
Well, we really don't have any miticides anymore for the homeowners. Kelthane, when it was taken off, was the last one. But we have soaps, we have insecticidal soaps, not detergents, the horticultural oils, mineral oils, and a number of other products that have miticide activity would be one. If you have any questions, it's always good to contact your county extension office and find out what would be some recommendations for two-spotted spider mite.
And one more garden bug to pick up on. A beetle on asparagus, which is one of our earliest crops of the vegetable gardening season.
Yeah, asparagus is a great crop. There's not many pests overall, but the big one is common asparagus beetle. The eggs are laid on the spears. They're very noticeable. They're gray. They protrude out. They hatch into these larvae that look like slugs. They're gray, and then they mature into these adults, which are actually quite pretty. They're checkered with yellow and black, but they feed on them, and they can cause the spears to curl and be distorted. So be kind of aware of the common asparagus beetle, which would be out about this time of year, yeah.
Once more dealing with those via some common garden insecticide as well?
Yeah, or even hand picking. We have people go out there and just hand pick them off. It's just as easy as spraying sometimes if there's not too many of them.
Well, we'd like to finish up by reminding folks of the services that Extension out of K-State provides to homeowners and to gardeners in contending with whatever insects they're finding in their lawns, in their gardens. Well, much going on as always, Raymond. We'll have you back in a few weeks and see what more has emerged in the horticultural insect realm. Thanks for now.
Always look forward to it, Eric, yes.
He is Raymond Cloyd, horticultural entomologist, K-State Research and Extension. And that for you is this week's K-State Horticulture segment. Once more, to remind you as we go, to listen to the podcast version of the broadcast, visit agtoday.net or using your podcast app on your mobile device, type in the search keywords Agriculture Today Kansas, and then tap on the subscribe button, and brand new episodes of our program will automatically arrive on your device every weekday. In the meantime, we hope you'll be right back here with us tomorrow when we talk with K-State's Dan O'Brien about the grain market trends, and we'll have a look at some updated farm program payment information from K-State's Art Barnaby. Until then, Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today. This is the K-State Radio Network.